Hello, BookTube. I want to make a quick announcement video here. I made an informal, soft announcement on a Sexy Steve stream yesterday, but I realize not everybody watches those, and I want a separate video for it anyway. I have been agonizing in 2023 about starting a Steve Donoghue book club for this channel, Steve Tiberius Donoghue book club, so that you can catch your STD. And I've been agonizing about back and forth what form that would take. I think I was diverted into the wrong channels of thinking by the word book club, by the term book club, into thinking of it in and looking at examples on BookTube, and all of the bigger BookTube channels have book clubs, and they are all hyper monetized. You have to pay to join them, in addition to whatever ads you're watching, in addition to whatever Patreon level you're at. You have to pay to be part of them. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, well, okay, if it's a book club, you're going to want to keep track of who's participating and whatnot. But I kept, every time I boiled down that activity, it boiled down to making money for the booktuber. And I don't want to make money off this channel. So I was thinking about it, and then I realized a few things. I realized that any book that I would pick would be something that I had already read. I don't want to pick a dud and then complain about it for a month. I don't want to inflict a dud on you, especially since I'm thinking about books that aren't in the common domain. I'm thinking about things that aren't classics. You can't download them from Project Gutenberg. You would have to go and find a copy at your library or your used bookstore. So I wanted to know ahead of time that I liked the book, and that was, I realized, going to entail the fact that I would know the book better than you would, unless you too are rereading it, and even then. And that started to feel a lot less like a book club and a lot more like a seminar. Book clubs, somebody picks the book. It's usually somebody's turn, but I know a lot of book clubs who pick books by what's popular in the New York Times or on Goodreads or whatever, and they all go into it blind. This isn't going to be that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when I started to think, well, okay, if you're going to pick a book and then you're going to lead everybody else through it in the course of a month, and you're going to break it up into sections for the whole of the month, BookTube already has a term for that. If you're not going to charge people money to make it a book club, then that's a read-along. BookTube already does that, right? I've done many read-alongs on this channel over the years, so I'm going to do read-alongs, but I'm going to call it the Steve Tiberius Donoghue Book Club. It's a free country. I can call it whatever I want, right? And that name is too much fun for me to abandon. So we're going to inaugurate the Steve Tiberius Donoghue Book Club for 2023. And I am going to go with the yardsticks, the parameters that I originally thought of. I want these to be probably major release, probably semi-popular books that have been in the marketplace. They are not canonical classics yet. Someone still owns the copyright. You would have to buy a copy. I realize that will limit the number of people who might want to join in. I'm perfectly happy to help. If you live in the continental United States, I'm perfectly happy to look for a copy for you. But I'm picking things that had such, I would like to pick things that have such wide distribution that you probably won't have trouble finding a copy. And of course, I am always free to send you an e-copy, send you an e-book of almost anything that I pick. We're going to start off in February, so you have 3 weeks to get ready and prepare and maybe do a little reading. And we're going to read this. We're going to read A Distant Mirror by Barbara Tuchman. This is her 1978 history of the 14th century, and it did well. It was a Book of the Month Club, I believe. It was a History Book Club selection. It had its time on the New York Times bestseller list. By this point, she was an extremely well-known and trusted popular historian, much like David McCullough. So she came in for brickbats from specialists who said that she was selling out the whole profession. And if you are watching this video and maybe you are one of those snobs, then this won't be the book for you, and probably not the book club for you either. But for most people, including me, this was a delightful reading experience. Thought-provoking, touching. It's really, really good. If you've had this on your radar, on your shelf, on a TBR, many times and never got to it, well, I'm here both to tell you that it is worth getting to and to invite you to join me in February when we do a read-along of this book. Now, this book is broken up into 2 long parts. So what we're going to do very informally for February is for the first week, we're going to read the first half of part 1. Then the second half of part 1, then the 2 halves of part 2. This has a kind of narrative framework. She is centering, Barbara Tuchman centers a large part of her narrative on one individual, Enguerrand de Coucy, a French nobleman who married into the British royal family. He was present. He was involved in a large amount of the epic events of his time. So he is a kind of convenient spine on which to hang the book, but don't worry about it. Don't worry if you don't know him. He's not a household name. Don't worry if you don't know anything about French royalty or French nobility. Don't worry about any of that. Barbara Tuchman has you well in hand in the course of this book. And it touches on everything. It touches on all the chaos of the 14th century. Massive, man-wasting wars. Huge social upheavals. And the greatest pandemic in the history of human civilization. The Black Death. And as with a lot of her other books, not so much The Guns of August, but definitely The Proud Tower or The March of Folly, her approach is very broad. She covers as much of the territory in all aspects of society as she can in the course of one fairly hefty book. So this is going to be our inaugural read-through, our read-along, our Steve Tiberius Donoghue Book Club for 2023. We didn't do anything for January. We're going to do this for February. Now, I want to stress that this is not going to supersede any other read-alongs. As I feel like doing read-alongs, especially in conjunction with other BookTube events, I will do them. This will still be going on the whole time that we're doing any other read-alongs, no matter what those are, whether it's some read-along for February fantasy stories, for instance, or maybe a new 2023 version of DuneTube, or who knows what. Who knows what it is. But we're going to start with this. So I wanted to make an official announcement video so that you can get a copy, get yours lined up, get yours dusted off if you've had one and haven't got to it. That's what we'll be reading for February for the Steve Tiberius Donoghue Book Club. So I hope you join me. Be a lot of fun. I haven't worked out the exact bugs of what I will do. There'll be a dedicated video for each of the 4 parts that we do. I'll make a dedicated video discussing some of the things that jumped out to me. As to live streams, I don't know how feasible that is. I get the impression that if I were to start a live stream on this book, it would quickly degenerate into whoever is making scandalous headlines in Washington or on YouTube that given week, which might end up being a waste of time for everybody involved. I don't know quite how I will do that. I don't think there's any necessity for me to have a Discord server. I really don't. I think if there's a live video, maybe I would just ask that we do it separate from my usual Steve streams and keep it fairly on topic. Or maybe we just won't do it at all. We've got plenty of time to think about it. But that's going to be our book. So come along for the ride and join me in the 14th century. Thank you, BookTube.